Hi, how are you? Nice to see you.
Oh, really? Seriously? Listen, never seen it.
Like the whole Big Ten.
What are we talking about here?
Here's handout.
I know, you got Hey, Mike, how are you?
Scale. All right, thank you. All right, I'll follow along.
I will call this regular council meeting to order. Please stand for the pledge. Bruce, would you lead us, please? Please remain standing for a moment, please. Heavenly Father, we ask for your help tonight, Lord, in understanding how in today's world individuals, groups of people, and places of worship continue to suffer from religious persecution. While many topics bring this world to physical violence, please, Lord, help us to understand, educate, and show compassion to those who are subjected to violence in what should be considered a basic human right, the right to worship. Lord, we ask that you bring comfort to all the families affected in what happened in New Zealand, and that you would bring peace to all of us who wish to worship in our own ways and means. And for all of this, we ask this in your holy name. Amen. Okay, Kathy, roll please.
Carter. Here. Walter.
Here.
Powell.
Here.
Barstow.
Here.
Hayes. Here. Picken.
Here.
Lee.
Here.
Okay, we have a quorum present, nice full house. Good evening, everybody. First thing on the agenda is citizens' comments, and we do have our guest speaker, Mr. Fox, to give us an update with our Southwest Licking Sewer and Water folks. So, good evening, sir. Name and address for the record.
Mike Fox, 11540 Broad Street Southwest, Pataskala. I want to hand these out, and I don't need them back, but they're cool. These are tearing down the old tower on Summit Road, putting a new one up, and this is building the new water distribution center over off of York Road. Some pretty cool pictures in there on them.
Tearing down the tower, the old tower on Cleveland, or the old,
Down over on Cleveland,
Okay.
in Summit.
and that's
Right.
complete now?
Oh, that's done, yeah.
Yep.
And the new tower is put up, so. I want to go over a few things. We closed out a pretty good OWDA loan that has been standing for a lot of years. We have not had a increase in our rates in 7 years. And we're very close to where we didn't, but one of the boards promised that we'd have the debt reduction for 20 years. We're getting pretty close to that. And in fact, we're getting pretty close to getting it paid off. So I would like, I don't know where it'll go for sure, but we've got a rate study being done right now. And our hopes is that we will just do away with the debt reduction fees that they had for the last 25 years. And just
That'll go away from folks' bills?
go away from folks' bills is what we're hoping for. We're still working on the numbers, and we sent them back and had them worked on again. I believe we are probably going to be able to, just by restructuring some of the things the way they're happening. Financially, the district is in pretty good shape. Summit Tank construction is complete. The Summit Road project, which I understand people had some questions about, and I'll do the best I can on that, is complete. Refugee Road, I think some people know who the contractor is. The city's had some issues with, and we had the same thing. So we're dealing with a few issues there, but it's in general, that is complete. And it's just waiting for the weather to clear up to get finished up. We presently have 2 projects that we're working on. One is an Alexandria well field that we're working on coming up with a final agreement on. And the other one is Carr well field, which is out towards 37 and 40. Carr well field is actually in the process of being drilled right now for test wells. I believe September, the Alexandria one, September, October will be underway for that. Between the 2 of those, we're looking at maybe 3.5, 4 million gallons a day. So we're working pretty hard to get that and make it happen. We still have a few other things out there, but nothing else is done. The rate study, let's see what else we got here. Our building is the new water plant. April 6th, April 8th, we'll start the 30 days that we have to run it before we can actually put it all the way online and do everything. And after that, we're hoping to get some grass put up there, and we'll have an open house for that plant. That's a big deal. The Sewer and Water District went from 1.5 million gallons a day to 3 million that can then be expanded to 5 million. So we've got some big numbers happening with some of the water around here, but I still think we all ought to all come together in this section of the county and get with the federal and the state and the county and get us an upland reservoir as soon as we can. If we start it now, we'll probably have it in 20 or 25 years. So now's probably the time to try to make something like that get started, because the amount of water I think we all already know we could have used, it's not going to get any better. So we have a refugee road car. I think that's probably the only thing I wanted to talk about. And then if there's any questions on Summit Road project that somebody had some questions about. I do know one thing, BJ, and I don't know whether you were aware about it, but I'm pretty sure Alan's aware. The contractor up there, who by all accounts did a great job, from what I've been told. But when they were done, they had a whole bunch of equipment or material left over, and they actually bermed Summit Road on that side that we worked from start to finish completely. Just in the last couple of weeks they did that. So that was a big help for the city. That's something they don't have to mess with. I did a drive-through today, all the crossroads, because most of the roads that we did on Summit Road were the crossroads. I mean, we didn't cut into the road anywhere except where we crossed. With the exception of Woodside, everything looked great. Woodside, the pavement on either side is so bad that it's going to have to get addressed soon. But it's not something, our patch is there, and we had to patch what we had to patch the way we did it. But other than that, everything else is good. A number of the residents in Woodside did in fact partake in it, and now have gotten the sewer and water hooked up already. The school project, as far as we're concerned, is complete. Everything's there for them to as they move forward to make their connections. So anybody have any questions?
Yeah, I do. I noticed that they put straw down, and of course, it's way too early for seed. Are they coming back to reseed and straw?
Well, I'm sure, I mean, that's the director's question, answer, but I'm pretty sure that if they don't, I'll get on them and make sure they do, but I'm pretty sure they still plan on coming back yet. That's about the only thing that's holding on, most of the projects that we had going this winter, was the final seeding and
Well,
straw.
you'll find out for me?
I will,
Okay,
I will check with,
I appreciate that.
Lee.
Let's see, you talked about status of your new wells and your test wells. You told me the tank is full on Cleveland, so there's water in those lines. If we had any, God forbid, a fire on Summit, we can
Yeah.
tap into those lines, right?
A lot of water, yes.
Okay. And this is kinda, I'm gonna talk so that Alan can help me out too, because I've been a little concerned about the berms. And I notice when I drive my vehicles, whether it's a car or truck, I can feel the vibration in the chip seal from the heavy equipment being on the road. If we have any, have you noticed any of that at all, Alan, or any damage or?
The northbound lane on the edge is a little bit more cracked up than the southbound lane is. And you could hear a little bit of that vibration, I think, when
What road is this, Alan?
Summit Road.
Summit?
On Summit Road.
That's
So,
where they put the dirt?
east and west. The west side of Summit,
Right, the northbound lane, the east side.
northbound lane, okay, all right, yeah.
Of course, that's where they put the dirt. They put the pipe in, then they put the dirt back on,
Right.
over the pipe, but they drove the equipment down the road. I just wanna make sure that,
The explanation they gave me is they first put sand down before they put the dirt down, and that helps spread everything out. But in addition to that, it's all been bermed within the last 2 weeks. So maybe Alan and Lee or you or whoever wants to can go out and take a look at it. I didn't feel anything any different when I drove, and, you know, I've got a fairly good sized Jeep, so, but I'm not sure I'd know what I was looking for anyway.
yeah, I don't wanna pile any more work on Alan, but would you make sure that our berms are back up to snuff with road level? Cause if they've got extra product and they're gonna put it down, that would help immensely.
Yeah, well, and Lee has said to let you know if you need anything, you know what to do. Just call them, they'll take care of it. So,
Okay, and then my last question would be, I do get some questions every once in a while on the internet, as you know, we both
Right.
follow a couple of those, sites. What is the debt down to?
you know, the last we got a report on it, which was mid-year last year, because they're getting ready to send some more in again this year. They do it in June or July every year, at the end of the fiscal quarter in there. It was under 20 million. So that was a debt of close to 80 million at one time.
I remember that.
Yeah, so,
Good, 20. So, but I'm cautious here when you say that the debt thing might go away, but you're investing in all kinds of new stuff. Isn't that going to just,
well, and I think the city does the same thing. The tap fees are what drives most of that investment.
okay,
So as we're going through and we're tapping things, that's the reserve that sits back there that they end up using for future and infrastructure repairs in the future. And that's primarily, but I'll tell you, I'll send you guys, probably be easier, I'll send you a copy of the financials so that you can actually see where we actually are on it. You know, and again, we haven't sat down and had our three-way discussion on the debt reduction yet, but I know that at different meetings, we've all talked that, you know, it was promised years ago that it was gonna be a 20-year debt reduction. And somewhere in the process of it, they dropped it. They dropped it down, which made the 20-year thing just go who knows where. But they've been paying extra on it, and they're working on it, and they're in pretty good shape right now financially. So it's time that if, you know, without any infrastructure or without any increases in our rates in the last 7 years, it's probably time for us to address that and to spread that amount over the next 10 years or so as a rate reduction change, I think is probably what we'll end up being able to do.
I know that's the most asked question, so I appreciate that. That's all my questions. You answered a bunch of them. Anybody else have anything for Mr. Fox? Yes, Mr. Hicken?
So I got a couple, Mike. The first one is, you mentioned the new well fields are gonna generate 3.5 to 4 million, possibly a day. I assume that's if both of the fields come in.
Well, the one we're in the process of signing on the dotted line. What happens to happen, you know this, with the EPA, we've spent, I don't know how long, working with the EPA, trying to make sure we're even allowed to go do test wells. Now, between the property owner and the city, or the district, they're coming up with an agreement that we can, in September, October sometime, go in and start drilling test wells. We just know there's a lot of water underneath there.
So I guess I'm trying to get to is your end product gross gallonage, whatever you wanna call it, is it gonna be, right now you're at 1.5,
Yeah, 1.8.
1.8? Is it gonna be 4 million more? Are you gonna be at 5.8? Or are you, is
One of the
that
wells,
4 million gallon a day number, everything dumped in, assuming that everything hit?
the one well that is getting a test well put in again, is they're confident they'll get 500,000 gallons a day out of that one. That's the one out at 40 and 37. The other one up north, I believe Mr. Walther can maybe answer some of this. I mean, they're throwing away, how many gallons a day they run down? They're throwing away 3.5 million gallons of water a day up at that site right now. Right now, they're running that much water through for their projects that they do up there. So, I believe 3 million is probably at the low end of it. But until we get the test, right, until we get the test wells done and everything's done, and then we come up with an agreement through this group, we're not gonna know for sure, but it's an exciting opportunity to get some water moving.
Have you guys talked about the amount of debt you would need to incur to purchase that, to run the pipe? I mean, would that not, it kind of mirrors the mayor's question, but you know, you're looking at more debt, you're talking about the debt coming off on the
Right.
left-hand side. This is 2 major projects and piping, and have you talked any internally about what debt you might want to
Well,
take?
one thing that makes money is water. And if we can provide more water, we make more money. I mean, that's just how it is. You're all aware that we've had some big users around here wanting water. And between both of us, both of the entities, we couldn't do it. It wasn't gonna happen. As far as an investment, you know, OWDA, as soon as we start talking those things, we get those very low interest loans out of that. And that's where it happens. And we structure them over however long we need to do. But there's other talks going on about that, you know, I'm not gonna share at this time publicly, but there's some things going on that could be very good for western Licking County in general, as far as water goes.
When you guys talk about the debt coming off the rate and the fact that your rate has not gone up, you and I personally have had conversations, and this may have changed, which is why I want to ask this question. As that component of your bill falls off, there is not necessarily a corresponding drop in the citizens' water bills. Because you guys are talking about some of the debt falling off, but you're also talking about, and I realize it's been 10 years, I just want to be clear with the public and everything, that when you talk about the debt coming off, or we're looking at dropping that off, doesn't necessarily mean everybody's water bill is gonna go down $50 a month.
Well, no, it doesn't. But one of the things that we want to, that the studies we're really looking at is Beechwood Trails. Beechwood Trails, this city provides water at Beechwood Trails. We provide sewer at Beechwood Trails. We charge them a flat rate of $65 a month for sewer. anybody else get their sewer bill, you're not paying that much. Throughout everywhere in the city. It just doesn't, that's way high. But that was the agreed upon amount when the city convinced when the county convinced the city to come in and provide water, and then they got us to go in and do the sewer. That's what the agreed upon amount is. We have customers in there that don't use 2,000 gallons of water a month, but they're paying a $65 water fee. That was the biggest shot to say we've got to change these rates. We've got to get those back to normal. Now, that being said, if you're a family of 5 or 6, $65 a month so it's going to be based on your water usage. $65 a month may not be out of line. So some are going to go down and some are going to go back up. That's in that area. The city, most of the areas in the city we have both water and sewer, and we meter them, and that's there. There's been a surplus building for the last 3 or 4 years within the district, which is why we've been able to do some of the things that we're working on. When we're going after water, we don't question anything. We just go after water. That's the most important thing right now for Western Licking County, and the city, and the Etna Township, and Harrison Township, is to get the water out here. So Lee can explain better about the OWDA process and how it all goes through than I can. And if you want to talk to him, you and I can go out with him one day and sit down and go through it. And I don't think Chris.
Yeah.
I've met you before.
I've been around.
Okay, but I've never, not in your capacity. So I talked to Lee and said I'd like to get out and go down and talk with you. So maybe the 4 of us can get together and go sit and talk about it, and they can answer your questions.
I know we've had this discussion before, and I would be remiss if I didn't say, I appreciate your exuberance for we need to get all this water to Western Licking County, but every place that is represented by Southwest Licking Sewer and Water already has water.
No.
Harrison.
We have, if you look at, well, there's lots of areas that we don't have it, but if you look at what the county has done with their plans for the future, we're clear up into Alexandria.
I understand that.
That was all stuff that was brought up farther a few years ago before actually either one of us were around. They did that. So there is, what is it, 205 plan? Is that what it is? 208 plan. The 208 plan, probably ought to get that, put that together and take a look at it, and that'll tell you exactly.
The last time I looked at it, it's just this giant, we think we can
Right.
get here.
Well, and
that's what.
that's what a 208 plan is.
I know what-
But if you're not down on that 208 plan, you're not going up there. That's it. It's hard to do. There's been discussion, and I think I've let a few people know that there's a developer is interested in the water line that will ultimately feed the school with the proper amount of water where they can get that tank, take that tank down that they've got sitting out there. But then north of that, there's a developer that's very interested in coming in and building some up along Summit and Morse. So I'll tell you, we're getting asked for water more and more and more, and it's economic development that's driving it right now. I mean, certainly we have some residential areas that are being proposed on Refugee Road and a few other places. Etna Township has one going on right now that kind of mirrored one of our things where we had to get the law directors involved, and we fortunately got out of that bad. Etna Township, I don't think is going to make it out of it. I think they're going to have to go with a 25-year-old plan that was presented, and that's a herder. I mean, it's a whole lot different than what it should be. But again, water is what drives the sewer and water district to get where we are today, and water is going to drive the PM district completely when people are going to start coming in there. And that's it. I mean, if we don't keep going after water, it's not going to help. Which brings up two things. An upland reservoir, which we certainly ought to sit down and start working on between all the entities in western Licking County, including the county. And a emergency connection between the city and the sewer and water district. We presently have an emergency connection with Fairfield County. We have an emergency connection with Jefferson Township. You know, there's no reason in the world that we shouldn't implement that emergency connection. It just makes good common sense. It's good for the district, it's good for the city, it's an extra back. I know that some people thought, well, we got 2 water plants, we really don't need it. Well, that's okay, hopefully, but it shouldn't be a hopefully. We should have it in place, it should happen. Last estimate I got, and I may be way wrong, BJ, 150,000 would get us connected.
I forget what that number
Yeah,
was.
well, I mean, that was just the most recent one. And that's not without, I mean, that's without saying, well, the city's gonna do this, and we're close already. We're just gonna make a connection, it's gonna be there, and if anybody needs it in an emergency, they got it. Even better than that, if the city's got water lines near where they can get to the PM district, or we can get to the PM district, and we use some of the city water to do that, like the plan that we did work on once a year or so ago. It's in place. We don't have to mess around and hope we can do it next time. We can actually have that in place, and it's important that we get that done. So anybody, utility committee, mayor, council president, BJ, anything we can do to facilitate making that go forward, I think we need to make it happen.
That's all for me.
Any other questions for Mr. Fox? All right, well, thank you for
Okay.
your presentation, sir.
All right,
Appreciate it.
thank you very much.
Yep.
Take care.
Now we'll open it up to citizens' comments. Anybody wish to speak? Name and address, 5
Connie
minutes.
Pardon me?
Name and address.
Oh, name and address. Connie Klima, P.O. Box 991, Pataska, Ohio. I'm here speaking on behalf of the owners of the property for Hunter's Crossing and the developer. I handed out some information that I'm going to go through right now that I would like to just have you consider. I know we've been here several times and have discussed this with you, but in my communications with council members, some things I want to clarify to make certain they understood where we've come from and where we are now. It's been asked of us if we would consider eliminating some of the lots. I want to start with back in July of 2017, when this applicant first came to the Planning Commission. They presented a plan to the Planning Commission with 293 lots. That was 142 lifestyle homes, that's the empty nester, and 151 single-family homes. After Planning Commission deliberation, they came back in January of 2018, the second time, and had reduced that number by 23 lots. We're down to 270 lots, 171 lifestyle, and now 99 single family, much less single family, more lifestyle, after speaking with Dr. Wagner, who said the empty nester product would probably better support what his situation is with the schools. After that, a third time they came back in June of 2018 and had reduced it again, this time a total of 41 lots, being only 229 lots, 141 lifestyle, 88 single family. And then they came back a fourth time and brought it down to the current application with 223 lots. That's a reduction of total of 70 lots, 144 lifestyle, empty nester products, 79 single family. And when I say lifestyle products, keep in mind that that lifestyle product is a product that will be under an association where the homeowner is not maintaining their own yard, the association is mowing and taking care of it. No playground equipment is permitted in those homes yards, and also no fencing. So they are much more conducive to the empty nester buying it. And keep in mind, that's 144 of the lots, 79 single family. In addition, we have no duplexes in this subdivision. We have no multifamilies. We have no condominiums. These are all single family homes. The current future land use plan, which we're under, shows this as an R20, two units per acre, 2.1 units per acre, which we are at. We're not asking to go above that. Our house sizes, no deviations. We do not have small houses. We have houses that range in the single family from a minimum of a little over 1,800 square feet to over 2,700 square feet. Our lifestyle homes, the ranch style, go from 1,300 to up to 1,720, which you can see in your packet. No deviation from what the code requires. And I know, of course, you can say, well, we have a draft land use plan on this site that shows an R87, but it also talks about a lot of open space and provisions that would permit 2 to 1, 2 acres per, 2 units per lot, as we're proposing, and also says that there could be detached and recommends detached and single-family homes. So we are not that far off from the current and the future land use plans as they're proposed. Our open space is almost 40 acres. That's approximately almost a half of this property, and also is there and is usable space, as the future land use in draft form says should happen. Walking trails, that type of thing. We also, because the city does not currently have an impact fee, listened in, then came back and said, after speaking with your engineering department and public service director, asked what would be our portion of the share if we were to participate. We agreed to offer that amount, which is over almost $49,000 for future impact on the roads at Mink and Refugee. We agreed also to give extra trees that we're asking for on our streetscape to the city for them to plant wherever they wish to plant them. I also ask that tonight, if you deliberate on this third reading, that if you have questions or any concerns, that you please allow us to respond. We are here and ask that we have that communication, because communication is tough in this form of council meeting. It's not like other typical councils where I go, the City of Columbus or other communities, where I'm allowed to stand up and have communication with council members. Here, basically, we're limited to a public hearing, and then we go through 3 readings where we sit in the audience, you deliberate, but we do not participate. We would like to participate if you have further questions. And I also ask that if you do determine tonight, on your third reading, to actually go for a review or a vote, that you first vote to amend the Planning Commission recommendation to add the fact that we will give the $49,000 and some dollars for infrastructure, and that we will have to give the trees as we have promised. Last but not least, we've heard a lot of people talking about community and infrastructure. The infrastructure to this property is sufficient. We have water and sewer capabilities. Fire department says that they're fine with the accesses. The only issues that have come up infrastructure-wise have been people talking about schools. And I have to say that most of the people talking about schools are people that either grew up here and lived here or moved in here. And they moved in here and did not leave because schools were an issue. They stayed. Good schools make a community. And when you have good schools, people will move here. City of Pataskla is not going to be stagnant. It's going to grow. It's going to grow. And it's also going to be diverse. It's not going to be everybody living on a farm or a 50-acre span. It's not going to be people living in 2 to 5 acres, because that's not how it's going to be. There's going to be those people, like there always has been. And then there's going to be people that want to live in a community where their kids can walk out and go down the street and play with the kids next door. There's going to be people that live in downtown of here or over in Summit Station, where those small lots, which are smaller than ours, people live there. It's been part of our community for years. And then there's going to be people that will live in what is now called a subdivision. And those subdivisions can be better if they have places where kids can play. Instead of going back by a creek and playing in somebody's yard, this open space is there and usable by children. I used to have to trespass to go to the farmer and play and build tree houses. This open space, in the way that your community can be developed, is with subdivisions that have active, open trails, walkways, places where kids are allowed to play, and at the same time be on a private street or a street that is not a public road like Refugee, but allows a person to go into their community, into their neighborhood, and live there. And basically, when it comes to schools, stopping schools from growing means stopping a community from growing. A community is its citizens. People will come here for your schools if they're good. And if they're not, people will leave. And when schools start dying, you'll be closing buildings and not building them. this all plays together. Communities live and thrive off its citizens, off its ownership, off its taxes, and then off of the community. Businesses that grow with housetops, off the restaurants that come when we have enough people here. All of those things work together. Being in fear of growth is in fear of basically a community blossoming and being able to live in its own area and not have to go other places to have the amenities that a community should bring. Thank you.
And just for the record, you did admit publicly that you trespassed.
I did.
Okay. Anybody else wish to speak tonight? Yes, ma'am. Need your name and address, and you'll have 5 minutes to speak, ma'am.
Good evening, my name is Terry, T-E-R-R-I Martin. My address is 210 Meadowway Southwest, Pataskala. As a homeowner in the Broadmain Heights development, which is adjacent to the proposed subdivision to be located on Refugee Road, I would like to express my concern for the approval of this project. The specifications for a 223 lot subdivision will place too heavy of a burden on the Licking Heights school system, which is already at capacity. In addition to this proposed subdivision, there are at least 2 other subdivisions that are or will be feeding into the Licking Heights Licking Heights school system. Additionally, the roads in the area of the proposed development are in continual state of deterioration. The traffic study cited by the developer previous meetings was conducted during the summer. It's misleading and not indicative of the volume of the traffic currently on these roads. If a proper study was to be done at a minimum during the hours residents are traveling to and from work and school, or a 24-hour period during the week, it would be plain to see how heavily traveled they actually are. How many new homes will it take the Pataskala City Council to realize there is a problem with overgrowth? Without additional improvements to schools and services, the community simply cannot keep up at this pace. This in turn would require more tax revenue. I understand there has to be progress, but at what cost to the residents? Please take this into consideration, these facts, and listen to your constituents' concerns when voting on the rezoning of the property on Refugee Road. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Anybody else wish to speak? Yes, sir.
Dr. Bill Sternberg, representing the Licking Heights Local School District, 6539 Summit Road Southwest, Pataskala, Ohio, 43062. I'm here on behalf of Dr. Wagner, and I'm going to read a little bit from the letter that was dated February 27, 2019 to Mr. Fulton. According to Dr. Wagner, as he understands matters, the Hunters Crossing proposal off Refugee Road is still being considered for a new residential development and is currently zoned for 2-acre lots. Further understanding the current zoning may allow a more dense residential land use that is just under ½ an acre per home. On February 20th, 2019, the Licking Heights Board of Education held its regular meeting. As expected, there were numerous topics of discussion, one of which included the Hunters Crossing proposal. Although one board member was absent for the February 20th board meeting, the remaining 4 Licking Heights board members expressed significant concerns about the density of Hunters Crossing's proposal. Moreover, the collective recommendation from the board is to maintain current zoning standards and not approve such a highly dense residential development that will put undue stress upon the school district. As we've said before, we are the 4th fastest growing school district in the state of Ohio out of over 600 school districts across the state. Conservative estimates in 10 years puts us at around 6,000 students, actually almost 6,100. We currently are at 4,500. Our schools simply cannot endure more growth such as this. So on behalf of the school district, including the Licking Heights School Board, the Licking Heights Schools do not support the Hunters Crossing proposal as is currently presented.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else wish to speak? Yes, sir.
Dan Bauer, 287 Summit Glen Road, Pataskala.
I have spoke to you before about this, but again, I live in the development right west of this. It was developed somewhere around 1960. And whoever the powers that be were at that time didn't have the foresight to recognize that putting half-acre lots, houses on half-acre lots without water and sewer was a bad mistake. I bought my home in 1965, or in 1972. It had been built in 1965. Soon after we got it, and I have reason to believe that probably before we bought it, it was this way, the sewage was coming up in the backyard. There was no way to add leach beds to a half-acre lot because they were already there and they were plugged up. Our water systems were not adequate at all. We were saved by the Southwest Licking Water and Sewer District when in 1994 we got water and sewer. Had those homes not been so fortunate as to get the water and sewer, they would have virtually, it would have been just an abandoned area. I see the same thing happening here with the school system. I personally do not think the best education is to necessarily send them out in a trailer or a modular for an education. I am suggesting that you try to put a stop on development until we can get the services that we need, good services that we need. Personally, I'm a retired teacher, and I think one of the most important things in an area is its school system, because that's training people for tomorrow. So I hope you will decline this request. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else wish to speak on any topic that you would wish to speak about? Yes, sir.
My name's Steve Hildebrand, 280 Blacks Road, Pataskala, Ohio, 43062. I've been living in Pataskala since 1995, so about 24 years. When we first come out here to Blacks Road, it was nice and peaceful, quiet. But then we've had some developments that have come along since then, and one of the largest things that I've noticed since I've lived here is the increase in traffic, which is along Blacks Road. And I'm in the 25-mile-per-hour area between Oxford and Toff Road there. And so, and I'm at home, so I get to see this, you know, from morning to night, and so you see the differences. And we have a lot of pedestrian, or at least we used to have more pedestrian traffic from some of the apartments in that area. Some of the others that live down there that would go to Kroger's and back and forth. But as the traffic has increased, not just that, but also the speed of the traffic has greatly increased. We have now people passing each other in front of, you know, kids, mothers with strollers, as they go up and down the road. And I know it's, you know, it's difficult for the police department to try to monitor this, but with the addition of all the other subdivisions that have grown, you know, east of where I live on Blacks, Blacks Road has become like a bypass to Broad Street. The amount of volume that we get there is quite a bit. It does make it difficult for the seniors that live there, even just to walk across and get your mail as myself. You know, I mean, sometimes you feel like you're taking your life in your own hands, waiting, and you'll have somebody going by 50, 60 mile an hour, and you're 1 foot from the edge of the road. So it doesn't seem to deter any of that. But I guess the resolution of that, or at least the suggestion that I may have on this is, you know, it's too expensive to do sidewalks. You can't really necessarily put in street lights, those are expensive. But I might suggest that we may put in a 3-way stop sign, either at Oxford and Blacks Road, or at Poff and Blacks Road. You know, we have those two there that could break up that area a little bit, because it seems like when people are coming in towards the city from the east side, that the rates of speed that are coming in is pretty high. So,
Thank you for your suggestion. Anybody else wish to speak tonight? All right, introduction, discussion, and approval of consent agenda matters.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Barstow, seconded by Mr. Hicken. Discussion and roll.
Carter,
Yes.
Walter,
Yes.
Powell,
Yes.
Barstow,
Yes.
Hayes,
Yes.
Pickens,
Yes.
Lee,
Yes.
Okay, consent agenda passes. On to reports. I'm gonna be passing out some information tonight. You got the latest book that I've been working on, the Stop the Violence book. If you'll recall, I did the drug book not too long ago for the schools and for our Drug-Free Club of America at Watkins. This is the next book that, Stop the Violence. I thought that was an appropriate book for the times, and we'll be getting them out to the schools and to the businesses. The businesses actually help pay for these by buying ads in the book. So the books cost us nothing, and it's just something to get more information out to our residents. As you know, BJ and I represent the city at Morpsey, and at our last Morpsey meeting, there was quite the discussion on the gas tax, and I know that BJ sent you out all an email telling us what we could see if that is a reality to help us, another way to help us fund our infrastructure, which we all know is an issue. So I will be giving you some information that I've got from Morpsey and then I'll be asking you in a couple of weeks to see if there's any interest in a resolution. I know sometimes, BJ, we've put together a resolution to kind of support different venues.
Yeah, there's been resolutions passed in the past to support or not provide support to different state issues.
I realize, it's a hot topic right now, and I'm right there with you. Everything I do, between my job and my hobbies, takes gasoline, but for safer and better roads, I guess it wouldn't bother me too much, so I'll get you some information on your desk, so I appreciate it if you have any questions, please let me know. This came in just as the meeting was starting. One of the ladies from last week, or 2 weeks ago, we had a proclamation for disabilities development. Our own Garrett Floyd, 20-year-old from here in Pataskala, went to the Special Olympics in Abu Dhabi and won 4 gold medals today. So, that's pretty cool. Put Pataskala on the map again. That's pretty neat. I'm sure we'll get an update on the move-in from the chief. And Grow-Licking County, I will have all of the information to you in the next week or so of everything that we've worked on in the past year. And then if you have any questions, please reach out to me. And then Nate Strum will be here, I believe, the first meeting in April to answer any questions that you may have and have a small presentation, I'm sure, of all of the media things and stuff we've been working on, not only for 2018, but what we're going to be doing in 2019. Mr. Barstow, what do you got for me?
Well, I just want to follow up with your gas tax issue, Mr. Mayor, the information, that's still up in the air, and I'm reading the tea leaves, the gas tax increase may end up being very small, if any. I'm just not sure where that's going to go. It doesn't seem to be a lot of, so I just asked you to emphasize that the information we got, I was on an 18-cent tax increase, and the House of Representatives chopped that to 10.7, and the Senate has indicated it's going to go even lower. So we'll see what it turns out. But just everyone to remember that the governors have proposed that, but it's nowhere near a dollar, at least at this point. That's all I have.
No, this is just a resolution and maybe in some support. So I get what you're saying. Thank you, sir.
Okay, thanks.
Mr. Zetz?
I have nothing, thank you, Mayor.
Mr. King?
Thank you, Mayor. I'll just follow up on what Todd and you have said about the gas tax. Todd's right. When I sent it out, it was based on the 18 cents. It was based on some projections that ODOT did for that 18 cents gas tax. Since then, and Todd's right, it has been cut down, and I don't anticipate that it will be at that 18 cents. I'm hoping it's something to help provides for some additional funding for our infrastructure. The other, couple other things I wanted to mention is the swimming pool. Lanier and I are meeting bi-weekly with a representative from PRA to continue working on the transition from the swimming pool. I anticipate in April we'll have a supplemental appropriation at one of the meetings to appropriate some money to help support, thank you. Sorry, I lost my train of thought, some of the operations of the swimming pool for 2019. Keep you apprised of that. And then I will touch on Main Street. I did not hear back from AEP. The Brady Danny, who I've been working with, is out of the office until tomorrow morning. I will be calling her first thing tomorrow morning to get an update, and will immediately turn around and provide an update to council on that issue. Happy to answer any questions the council may have.
BJ, just wanted to check in with you again on the JRS site railroad spur.
Thank you, yeah.
Thought would be a good idea to inform council about that.
Yeah, I keep getting, I'm sorry, that's okay.
JRS Red.
Yes,
Railway.
the JRS railroad spur, if everybody knows, there is a piece of property that the Rail Commission currently owns that goes from the railroad track to the corporate park site, and it's always been identified as having a rail spur on it to serve the site. I had a meeting today at the Rail Commission about that. Rail Commission was interested, first of all, to see if we were interested in purchasing that piece of property from them. They said it's become a nuisance for them, maintenance and everything. We would have to pay fair market value for it. Did not seem like that great of a deal to me. Where we did land, though, is the Rail Commission's gonna continue to own it. They're gonna reach out to surrounding farmers to see if there's an opportunity maybe for a lease with the surrounding property owner, but also keep the potential to serve it with the rail spur. I think that is the best outcome for that. They understand, they're looking to get rid of some of their properties, and I told them, interestingly enough, we were talking about the same exact thing this evening during our Buildings and Grounds Committee meeting. So, they will continue to have ownership of it. I told them that if they ever do go to try to start selling it to the public, please let me know immediately. If they would have said, hey, we will give this to you guys, I think it would have been somewhat of a different tone that I would have had, but they said they're unable to just give it to us. So that is the update on the rail spur. Part of that as well, Bill Lozier was there, who used to be the Licking County engineer. He and I are meeting tomorrow morning just to get caught up on some stuff. He's working for the Rail Commission and does some of the Transportation Improvement District work for Fairfield County and for Licking County. So anxious to get a chance to sit down with him and talk.
Just one more thing to add to that, I'd like to make sure that we note that John Carlisle is the one that brought it up to the Railroad Commission, that this railroad spur was a development issue for Pataskala, and reached out to me and then went forward with that. So I, personally want to say publicly that John Carlisle really was keeping his eyes open for us, and thank him for that.
Anything else for BJ? Yes, sir.
BJ, can you give us an update on where we sit with Main Street?
You just did.
With AEP?
Yeah, I did.
Oh, I'm sorry, did I miss that?
Oh, that's okay.
You're way over there.
Thanks, Tim.
Has it gotten
Thanks a
down
lot.
there yet?
I think Mr. Hickens he's had breakfast with Dr. Gupta again.
That's fairly unlikely. I guess as I was writing down the question when you first brought it up, the two.
Yeah, real quick, update was I did not hear back from AEP within the 2 weeks. Brady Daniel, who I'm working with, is out of the office till tomorrow morning. I'm calling her first thing tomorrow morning and will immediately get an update to council after that phone conversation.
My apologies, thank you.
That's okay.
We have one more quick question.
Is it one of the
Go ahead,
same
Colin.
questions?
Go ahead.
I have a question about the rail spur.
What about Main Street? No.
Wait, what is going on with Main Street? Did you say there's a rail spur on Main Street?
Yes.
Oh, okay. I mean, you said something about maintaining the rail spur? I mean.
Maintaining the maintaining
property
the right
also,
to put
okay.
in a rail
I wanted
spur.
to make sure,
They had
okay.
the access to the railroad.
Yeah,
Okay.
There's no rail spur there right now. They're gonna maintain the right to put a rail spur.
Right away, okay, I just wanna make sure I understood it, okay.
If there was
thanks.
ever a company that came here and said, hey, we need a rail spur, then
Right.
we'd be interested.
I just wanna make sure we weren't gonna, Alan was gonna have to, out there,
Working on rail cars.
rail cars, yeah.
Thank you.
All right.
Mayor,
Yes,
quick thing. PJ, one other quick thing. I do want to ask one more time.
you will have it. We are and Jamie knows
I
this
think-
as well. We're working on the audit letter for the project and we are working to reconcile, so do appreciate the patience and you will get it.
Thank you.
You're
On the
welcome.
police station?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Just so everybody knows. We're finalizing everything and
Well, I really would have liked an update while we were still building it, but I'm
Understood.
I'm disappointed that we didn't get it.
Understood.
So,
Mr. Nicholson.
Thank you, Mayor. In addition to my report, a couple of things. IRS letters went out today for the donations, letting those individuals, thanking them for the donations for the exercise equipment for the police station. We received a total so far of $3,200 in donations that went into the police fund to help cover the equipment cost. And so again, the thank you letters with the official IRS language that they can use them as for deductibility if they're so inclined. Filed under the category, be careful what you wish for. We were hoping to have a good response to our posting for utility billing clerk. As of today, we have 31 applications and it's open for another 3 weeks or 2.5 weeks. So the PBR is gonna have a lot of work with Chris that night to go through all those applications and come up with an eligibility list. Actually, I'm thrilled, just to finally get an opportunity where we have a large applicant base. We've struggled, and it's in every department. You might get 3 or 4 or 5 applications, and it's tough to hire the best people for the job if you have such a limited applicant pool. So I don't know if we did something a little different. We're gonna kind of do a look back at how we did this one a little differently and see if maybe we did something that worked a little better. Maybe the social media, I don't know. But I'm thrilled that we have 31 applications so far for that position. That's all I have.
Anything for Jamie?
Jamie, I think it's just a function of the economy. I can remember PBR meetings where we would have 30, 40 applications every time and thinking, wow, what did I get myself into? But, yeah, no, so I think it's more of a function of the economy, but that's great that we got a lot of applicants.
Yeah.
Chris?
Thank you, Mayor. Got a few highlights on my report. First thing, the design loan agreement and exhibit from the EPA has been issued. So there's a resolution for council tonight to award the contract with Hall to go forward with the design portion of the water reclamation facility upgrade. We had one clarifier that was down. There were some seals that were bad in it. Those seals have been replaced. Clarifier was placed back in service on March 14th and is performing well. The booster station on Broad Street, we were upgrading the 3 pumps there. That project finished March 15th. All 3 pumps have been upgraded and it has cut down our run time per day from an average of 20 to 24 hours on the weekends. Now we average 6 to 8 hours a day run time with these pumps. So it's a huge improvement from them. We did find a service line leak at 230 Granville Street on March 6th. Our crew went out and replaced everything from the saddle to the curb stop. Every piece of equipment that the city owns has been replaced with stainless steel and plastic service lines. The No Street Water Line project is expected to start the first week of April. That's 2 weeks from today. The first round of notices went out today to all the customers that will be affected the day that we have to shut the water down to do the work in that area. We plan on doing that again next Monday as a 1-week notice before the project kicks off. We talked about the billing clerk position. And the last thing I have is John Burr this week completed the ACO course to be certified in backflow prevention, which is something the EPA wants us to have for our backflow prevention program, somebody that's certified. So before this, last person we had certified had moved on. So I just wanted to give a congratulations out there to John for getting through the course. He's only been with the city for 2 months, 2.5 months, and he's doing really well for us. So just wanted to throw that out there. Aside of that, I don't have anything unless there's any questions.
Yes.
Yeah, Chris, would you mind elaborating? You had mentioned in this resolution we have tonight why we are non-compete, or why we're going to non-compete bid for $129,000+ contract. some things outside of the city's control. What exactly were those that were out of our control to delay this?
Correct, so the problem that we had was basically the EPA review process. We had built into our timeline, we've gone over a little bit before, we have to get everything, including the construction done and the construction bidding process to the EPA to be approved by the end of this year if we're going to qualify for that 0% loan. We added in a month into our timeline to get this done. When we got the resolution, it was 3 days later, we had the application into the EPA. That review process took about a month longer than was anticipated, and that's what ate up our extra time. So at this point, we're up against it on a time frame, and if we were to go through the competitive bid process, it would probably push us past the end of the year for that 0% loan.
If I remember correctly, when we were discussing this loan, I don't remember at least that we had to actually have all construction done by the end of the year.
Construction bidding, I meant.
Bidding, not,
Okay,
yes,
you just mentioned construction being done.
The
I wanted
construction
to make
bidding
sure.
process, not the construction, absolutely not.
yeah,
Thank you.
not the construction, all, construction bidding, all the way up through bid.
I must have misunderstood what you said, sorry.
It has to be done by the end of the year.
Okay, thanks.
Anything else? Yes. Chris?
Hey, Chris, how long have you been the utility director?
I've been here since the beginning of December 10th.
Okay, so it's time for me to ask this. How's the product?
Product is wonderful,
Great, okay.
stacking very high.
Thank you.
Did they leave you a note when you took over that would be a question?
No, I've heard around a little bit about the interest in the product. It's a very interesting process, so
Thank you,
I
Ms. Stace.
understand it.
You're
Thank you,
welcome.
Stace. I made Nate promise that he would leave a note, seriously, whoever so he said, I wouldn't catch him off guard.
And normally I would enlighten you, but not in this case. Alan, what do you got for me?
Thank you, Mayor. Just one thing on what Chris said, for Mill Street, we'll also put out the message boards ahead of that. Let people know that that's coming up about a week in advance. We also put the ramp and the Pataskla Safe Travel Plan. Those are both out to bid currently. We're looking to open bids for those on April the 9th. And then the Oak Meadow project, we were looking at what we could do as we found our original path to the river was not available. We were looking at what we could do on Pat Haven Drive. On the east side is where the water line and the sewer line are, so we couldn't go there. We looked on the west side of the road. There's a gas line that snakes all over the right-of-way. So we could, of course, have the gas company move that out of our way, but that would take a lot of extra time. So that being considered, we can go in the roadway is open. It will just cost us a little bit extra money. I did get the cost estimate on that today. It adds about $50,000 to the project, taking us from $700,000 to about $750,000. And that is a little bit less actually than what I had anticipated in the surplus versus needs report that I sent out on Friday. Other than that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Yes.
I have a couple quick questions for you. In your write-up, you mentioned engineering proposals coming for the Taylor Road drainage, is that correct?
Yes,
And then also the intersection improvement project?
yes.
Are you getting proposals from multiple companies for that?
For Taylor Road, I did not get multiple on those ones. I was stuck with a traffic engineer that had given us a good proposal on the Broad Street corridor timing. And we can save a little bit of money on that by lumping those together and doing traffic counts together for those two projects. And then for Taylor Road, Strain and Associates had done our Graham Road. They did a good job on that, so I'd asked them for a proposal specifically for this one. And actually, what we've got right now is looking at a study, not engineering currently.
Second question for you. You mentioned in the Pataskla Safe Travel Plan, and you also mentioned in the ramp, utilizing some of the or some of the money that was well done, saved from last year. You're not counting that twice. You're saying that between the two of them, we have a certain amount of monies that were left over from 18. You're splitting those up between those two projects. Is that the idea?
So there's two sheets to that. The first one's the surplus where I explained where each of those came from, and then so we had roughly $1 million of surplus, and then splitting that up between about 5 different things, using roughly half of that. So yeah, it's all discrete
Okay.
money, if you will, not just twice.
I think you mentioned that you went over this with the street committee.
Correct.
Is there any way we can get the rest of the council can get a copy of that? what the surplus is, how it's being
That should have been
projected to be
attached
used?
to the email, with the spreadsheet. It was a
Okay,
PDF
I did.
spreadsheet.
I would have to say I didn't see
If
that.
not, let me know and I'll send it.
I got it.
You got it?
I'll look back through there and see if I've got it.
Okay.
It was sent on Friday.
It was sent,
Yes, Friday afternoon.
it was sent after the packet was sent out.
Oh,
So it was
Friday,
sent-
okay.
Yeah, it was
I
separate
didn't-
email Friday
I didn't-
around
I didn't check
5:30, I
it
think.
again, so
So it's
I
your
missed it
fault.
on, I missed it on Friday, yeah. I was in Cleveland, they don't have service up there. Okay, thanks.
Anything else for Alan? So, did you have your hand up, Suzanne? Okay. Sirens working?
Last we checked, sirens were working, yes.
'Cause
We'll
it
check
was-
again the first Wednesday of April.
You know, it's funny, they did their big test and it was on one of the news medias, I'm not sure which, but there were 11 in Licking County that weren't working. So kudos.
Thank you.
For staying on that, because I'm probably gonna ask you every 2 weeks, just to make sure. All right, thank you, sir. Mr. Fulton.
Thank you, Mayor. I did want to mention that ordinance 2019-4332, this is the ordinance pertaining to high grass, has been amended. Council requested that it be amended at the last council meeting to require posting on the property, so it has been amended to include that. Also, I did want to mention that the Comprehensive Plan Steering Committee met on February 28th, and we discussed the feedback we received upon the draft plan. We have sent those edits to the consultant to make those updates, and then we will be reconvening, I think we decided sometime in April, to keep moving through the plan to make sure that when we take the plan to Development Committee, that everybody on the steering committee is pleased with how it is so that we can move it forward in the process. And I would be happy to answer any questions.
Anything, yes, sir.
Couple quick questions, just on the Planning and Zoning Commission in your report, you talk about a couple different applications that came in with divergence from the street trees at 30 feet. Do you think, Scott, it's worthwhile now looking back at this and either revising our code so that this is not a topic each time, or to make it 50 feet, if that's what the city, if that's what it wants, if that's what the administration wants, I think that should at least be brought to us to see if we can amend that ordinance, or if there's a reason to do something different, we can then weigh in on that. It seems like this is a continuing comment to every development.
And this would be, and this is not coming from the administration, so it's not the administration.
Public service, right, I understand.
It would be coming from Planning Commission approving those divergences. So I think the unique situation is this is all for the Broadmoor Commons subdivision. So they've, in phase one, they changed the tree spacing from 30 to 50, and now they're just doing it throughout the remainder of the subdivision as they move through. So they did phases 2 and 3 and phase 5. So I think we've got everything caught up to this point that they've got the divergence. Our code says 30, so if we have a subdivision with a half-acre lot, 30 feet is completely doable, having a tree every 30 feet. When we do the more cluster design, then it starts to get difficult to have those every 30 feet. So it might be a case-by-case basis. Typically with the street trees, that's part of the initial proposal when they come through, that they think that out beforehand. When these folks came in, the public service director was adamantly opposed to having trees in the tree lawn, so we had to put them on private property. Then that became difficulty, so we came back and fixed that. So this is kind of an anomaly in the overall process that we're kind of going and tying up loose ends. So it's definitely something we can consider, but it's more dependent upon lot size. That I think if we're seeing a lot of the planned development districts and they're looking for more of a cluster design, and then 50 may be appropriate, but that's simply just the divergence that they could put in their development text. So if it's something, we can bring it up at development committee, if it's something we want to look at, but I think it's, at this point, kind of a case-by-case basis.
We're seeing it in, I've seen it in a number of developments at this point. The other side of that coin is, if it is going to be reduced to the 50, there should be, I think, there should be at least something that says the additional trees, or the trees that are balanced trees, should be at least delivered to the city to utilize in parks and other open spaces that, or in places that do not have trees.
Mm-hmm.
So that's just my 2 cents on it. I have one other question on application for the towing company.
Yes.
Is this a place where they're going to have storage of cars? I know you have salvage or scrapped, and vehicle sales will not be, shall be prohibited. But what about storage of cars? My experience with towing companies are they go out, they get the car, they bring it back to their gated area and store the car for sometimes forever. What's the qualification on that?
This was discussed at the Board of Zoning Appeals in terms of storage. How long can they store? It became an issue where there was a discussion of putting a time frame on it that it would be 30 days, but then the applicant indicated that sometimes if there was something related to an accident or police involvement that they were getting the car, that 30 days would be too short of a time period. Then there was discussion of, do we extend it to 60, 90, 120 days and have the code enforcement officer go and check their books every 90 days? That didn't seem practical from a staff standpoint, that we knock on their door and show up and say, show us your books and make sure. Because then by that point, if there's something that was there 120 days, we give them a door hanger and go through our process. The car would be moved within the arguably the 24-day time period. That it just becomes a lot of cyclical paperwork. Also, the storage lot is not very big, so if the cars were to be stored there for forever or extended periods of time, from a practical business model, if you have someone's car towed and you got to move 12 cars to get to it, it's not going to work out. So, based upon the size of their storage lot and the discussions we had on their business practice, it was determined that to have storage of vehicles and put a finite time frame on that was not practical.
So in other words, there is no time limit.
That's correct.
And this is in, okay, so let me just keep on asking another question. This is on Broad Street.
Correct.
Downtown Broad Street. And we're gonna allow unlimited storage, a storage lot on Broad Street. Okay, so what's the can I ask what the screening requirements are?
There's no screening requirements based upon the code.
Okay, that's all my questions, thanks.
Can I ask exactly where this is at?
421 West Broad Street.
Old Sally's Hearth and Home.
Yep.
That's what I thought, okay. Thank you. Any other questions for Scott? All right, Lanier?
Thank you, Mayor. Give you an update on many Foundation Park projects that we have going on or have gone on. The Foundation Park improvements for the bathrooms have been completed. Those were completed on Friday. In front of you, you have some pictures of that completed project. It looks pretty good. Our next venture will be car park bathroom remodel. Most likely that will start within the next few weeks. Update on the holding tank. Currently waiting on the final product of the holding tank to be completed. Once the holding tank is completed by EC Babbert, we'll go ahead and schedule when that project will begin, and we'll have it knocked out within a week. Next project will be the Foundation Park softball benches. We have 2 of them formed up, hoping to have it all formed up by the end of the week and set to pour concrete on the 30th, which is next Saturday. So that project will be wrapped up by the end of the month. Plumbing wise for Foundation Park, this week or last week, we had to have Crookshank come out, fix a few things. They'll be doing a lot of backflow testing for us this week. With the pool backflow valve being shut, they will not be opening or de-winterizing the pool tomorrow, not until we figure out if we need to replace the system or not. So we'll find out. I'll have some news for you by the end of the week or in a report for next time. That's all I have for my report. Happy to answer any questions.
When you say benches, you mean the, in the dugouts, the concrete floor that's gonna get poured?
Concrete pad, yep.
Very good. That's coming to fruition. Great. Anything for Lanier? Yes.
If you wait until the next council to give us a report on the pool stuff, will that still, is that put us on a time crunch?
Well, most likely, as soon as they fix the backflow valve, everything will be de-winterized almost immediately, so I can give you guys a report via email or give it to BJ and he can put it in his report.
Yeah, it'll be in one of the reports prior to the next council meeting.
When do we normally open the pool? Labor Day or Memorial Day?
Weekend. Yeah, so, every day counts.
Yep.
Very good. Chief Brooks?
Thank you, Mayor. As you alluded to earlier, are moving our server and installing the phones on Friday at the new building. So hopefully nothing goes wrong with that, and we'll be able to start working out of there in the next week. And unfortunately, we had a robbery at Kroger a week ago Saturday, but fortunately we had them within just a few hours, and they're in jail.
Nice job.
That's all I have.
I appreciate the press release. I think that's the way to go to, it seems to spread out and calm everybody down, and answers to questions are put out there pretty quickly, so that was a good job on that. Anything for Bruce?
Mayor?
Yes.
Bruce, I was actually at the Kroger immediately after you guys showed up, and I want to tell you, you guys handled it really well. I mean, the county guys didn't even come in. You guys were there. You were handling it. Everybody was calm. People continued to shop. It wasn't a big chase or anything like that. So congratulations to our team for not making a big scene out of it.
Thanks. I'll pass that on.
When people want their rotisserie chickens,
They weren't
nothing's gonna
stopping
stop.
for the, they were getting the whole bread.
All right, anything else for Bruce? Okay. Committee chair reports. That's Mr. Tommy Lee.
Go right ahead, Tom.
Tommy Lee.
Good? All right, thank you. Buildings and grounds met tonight. We had several items to discuss, so I'll make this as brief as I can. We talked about the gateway signs, the interest to the city. I think we identified 5 of them. If you're not familiar with them, which I'm pretty sure you are, it's the wooden signs that we use at Pascal. Did we determine they were lighted? I believe they are.
Sorry?
Did we determine that they were the lighted signs? I can't remember.
We think they have electricity going
You're not
through there,
hearing
but that's something we're gonna check.
Yeah, I can hear
You
you.
just need to speak up a little bit.
Speak up, okay. All right, I'll get a little closer there. So the signs, at the gateway signs, does that matter? Okay. The gateway signs, entering the city, I think there's 5 of them. We're gonna do kind of like a, you're gonna see a motion from council, we can discuss it, to do like we do adopt a road, to try and maintain them. Some of them are maintained, some of them are not. So we'd like to see all of them become maintained. We can talk a little bit more about that later, but you'll see a motion on that tonight, like we did the adopt a roads. BJ's gonna work on some language with that. We talked about the town hall renovation. We have the budget for that this year, I believe it's $200,000, and about half of that will be electric. I think we're looking at April. You'll start seeing some things from BJ come through on that. Is that correct, BJ?
First meeting in April.
First meeting in April. The cleaning contract is up for the current Old Town Hall and this building. That's being re-looked at for this building, Old Town Hall, and the new police station. We also discussed, there's a lot of, did you make a map? Does all council have that map?
I can send it out to them now, I just
Okay.
had them for the committee.
We looked over a map that BJ provided of all the properties that the city owns within the city. We were a little crunched for time, but we did determine, that we made a motion to council to discuss selling these 8 properties within Blanche Edition. And then we would take a look at the entire big picture later, so you'll see that later on tonight. Talked a little bit about parking lot repairs. Didn't get too much into that again because of time, and we'll discuss that later. So that is it. And if no one has any questions, you'll see those motions later on this evening.
Okay. Mr. Walter?
We had an ag committee meeting this evening. We reviewed 5 applications. I think you'll see on the agenda there are 5. Those 5 applications are within a motion for tonight, as well as there was one tabled from last agricultural meeting and last council meeting that is still tabled, and would ask that we remove it from the table for tonight's approval. Any questions?
Because according to your report, Scott, you do have the signature. for
That's
that-
correct.
that
We
one.
do have a signature on the one that was absent from last time.
Very good, sir. Any other committee chair reports? Mr. Hicken?
I'm gonna briefly make a fire board report. Thursday, the fire department, the fire board, the department more than anything else, wanted me to make sure that they thanked the city of Pataskala for the recent slate of fires, both our street department and our police department, who did a fabulous job. For those who don't know, the district experienced 5 significant fires in a very short period of time. So council knows, typically I get a call as the representative, and I always try to notify the mayor because he's in charge of our police department and hope that it goes down from there, and Mr. King in case it affects our water and stuff like that. But in this instance also, the mayor got with me and gave me some feedback that social media had a lot of questions. There was a lot of questions out there about people beginning to say, this is beginning to look extremely suspicious. We have you know, these fires, should we be worried? And I went to the fire board and they were gracious enough, and this is how it should work. They put some stuff out on their website as well that said, at this time, we have investigated these fires and they're listed as non-suspicious. So kudos to the street department. There was ice out there for at least one of those, and they asked us if we could get a salt truck out there, and it happened rather quickly. And they also mentioned that the police department did a great job. They offered them some pizza. One person who was in very good shape said no, and one said yes, and I won't say who it was. That's it. Just a quick update so council knows how it works, and so get my kudos out. That's all.
And I just wanna say, I appreciate your being a liaison. We didn't used to get all that information, and it is pretty vital when the residents are concerned like that, so, especially in the weather and the temperatures we had. Any other committee chair reports? All right, moving on to unfinished business. Ordinance 2019-4331 for a third reading. I'm sorry?
So moved.
Motion by Mrs. Carter, need a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Andy Walther. Kathy, when you're ready, third reading.
Ordinance 2019-4331, this is the third reading, an ordinance to rezone property located on Refugee Road Southwest, parcel number 063-141-384-00.000, totaling 106.33 plus or minus acres in the city of Pataskla from medium-low density residential R87 zoning classification to the Planned Development District PDD zoning classification.
Discussion?
I'd like to make a motion to amend.
Okay, go ahead.
I'd like to make a motion to amend from the P and Z, what am I gonna call it? P and Z understanding, I guess, or their directive to us?
Yeah, their recommendation.
Recommendations, to include the impact fee that has been suggested. I don't have the exact number, but the 49,000 plus, and the balance of the street trees to be delivered to the city.
Okay, I have a motion to amend. I need a second. Asking again for a second. And one more time. Motion fails. Back to discussion. Seeing no, you wanna say something?
Sure.
Okay.
Listen, I respect that. The last motion, I don't know that would necessarily change how I will vote on this tonight. I really thank Ms. Klima for coming up and stating that allowing us to ask questions during this section. I actually spoke to her for quite a long amount of time, and I thoroughly thank her for the time that I enjoyed the conversation. I think, I have some questions about procedurally, and I don't know if leadership has asked those but let me get to a little bit to how I feel, or tell you my feelings on this. I appreciate the people that talk about the effects on the schools. I take some of that to account, but I think the schools will all need to know that there will be times when there are tracts of land that don't ask for rezoning that are gonna get more homes. And there may be instances where there are tracts of lands where either they apply for a straight zoning to an R20 without a PDD in it, lot sizes that are all the same size, and houses that are all the same size. my vote tonight would not be, is not a blanket. I believe that, like the development side of it is important. I don't wanna send the message that, we are not open to some forms of development. I think it's, we need to look at in some instances, the comprehensive plan, well, all instances of comprehensive plan, realizing that it's in its infancy. I did also thank I do thank the developers for making the suggestion that they would be willing to pay some money for the impact study or the impact fees. However, not having those fees in place yet, I'm not 100% certain that how it's gonna end up looking. I think the city's gonna have to go through its machinations, and we're all gonna have to come up with, okay, what are those, what's it gonna look like? And I don't know that I feel 100% comfortable yet, which is why I didn't second Andy's motion, when I don't know that, yes, that's a checkbox. I appreciate the developer doing anything that they can to help us out, realizing that they did not have to, because this particular because we don't have impact fees yet, let's face it. With that said, I don't know, I know I had asked Mr. King or perhaps even Mr. Barstow, as we move on forward with the vote, is there procedurally, is there
Mr. Zetz, if you don't mind sharing with council, kind of what we talked about in leadership, just procedurally and how the vote should unfold, lack of a better option.
Well, I guess I have a question.
Yes.
From the perspective of, is it our goal as an elected body to move and second on, passing of the ordinance? Or is not passing it the same thing?
I think council has to take some action. You're up for a third reading, so, well, you could amend it in some way like Andy had tried. You could move to table it if for some reason you decided to do that, or you could move to adopt it, and that vote will go up or down. I think council should be, I think you should have some real discussion here, so it's very clear to the applicant and the record as to why you're gonna be voting the way you are. So that's clear on the record, but I think those are really your options. I mean, you can amend it in some way, you have to have another reading at the next council meeting. You always could table it for some reason, or you could,
I appreciate that.
vote on it.
I guess and to tie that into that up, to that end, I think that there is legitimate concerns about the effects on whether or not the infrastructure can handle the traffic.
I'll also say that your vote should not be solely based on traffic impact.
Thank you. We also talk about adequate public services. I don't know if that includes schools or not. I think that when I look at the development as it's presented to us, I still feel like there is a section of it that is squeezed, if that's the right word, where a lot of units are being put in a small amount of area, while the houses may conform to R20, the lots do not, I think. And I'm trying to think if there's another, that's it for me for now. I'll let council, other people in council have a chance to talk.
Okay, anybody else wish to speak? Yes, sir.
Thank you. I've had the opportunity to listen to, obviously, the applicant's position and the citizens that have come and spoken, the school representatives that have come and spoken, and I have to say that, other than the applicant, no one, not one single person that has come here and spoken at council, or that I have talked to in the community, or who's called me or emailed me about this is in favor of it. Not one single one. None. So I'm an elected official, and although I don't subscribe to the notion that you're just a will-o'-the-wisp and bend in the wind, I do take very seriously what my constituents say on an issue. And on this issue, if there is a citizen or a business that is out there that supports this, other than the applicant, I have yet to hear from that person. So if there's somebody out in the audience, other than the applicant, that's in favor of this, record should show I'm not seeing anybody. I do have concerns about the impact on the schools, and I do take that in serious consideration. Dr. Wagner came, he sent his representatives to both meetings that he was not able to attend. They're not in favor. I take that into account, and folks on council who know me, and the people who know me, know that I'm not a rah-rah for public schools. Didn't attend public schools. I am not an apologist for them. I think we gotta have strong schools. That is absolutely essential, and I hear what Dr. Wagner is saying when he talks about having kids that are in trailers and those sorts of things. That, to me, that's not an acceptable way to have education in this day and age. Concerns I have for the development itself would be the lot size, and unlike Mr. Hicken, I do want to send a message that we're not going to have, at least in my view, we should not have these sort of shoehorned, crammed together developments popping up all over Pataskala. I don't think that's appropriate. I don't think that's appropriate for a lot of reasons. It flows back into the impact on the schools. I've told Mr. King this. Mr. King and I have had some lengthy discussions. I think I've talked to Mr. Hicken about this at some length. I'd rather have us look a lot less like Reynoldsburg and more like Granville without the Granville snarkiness. I'm not suggesting that we have Brindue Drive here at Pataskala, but that we have larger lot sizes, and I think that is appropriate. And this development to me doesn't measure up to that. So it doesn't meet what I think is important. So the message I want to send is that developers who want to come, that's great. But to me, I'm looking at larger lot sizes, larger houses, and I think that has a number of pluses. Larger lot sizes would attract larger homes, which cost more money, which would attract people with higher incomes. And as long as we're basing our funding mechanism at this point on a 1% city income tax, which is the lowest that I'm aware of, it's certainly the lowest of any cities where I have to pay income tax where I work. We have to consider that we want to attract those kinds. In the future, I think we need to attract those types of things. We have a wide variety of housing here in the city already, different socioeconomic levels here in the city already. But I think going forward, we need to think about that because there's not a one-for-one correlation between a dollar of income tax and the stress that it places on not just roads but on the police department. We have to consider the fire department, even though it's not the city's fire department, but they serve us. And so there's not a one-for-one correlation. A dollar of income tax puts a lot more than $1 of stress on local services. And not all these entities are funded by income tax, but our police department is. So I think those are the things that have me concerned about this development. The developer's not interested in enlarging the lot sizes, and it's for a legitimate reason. They want to make as much money as they can, and they're capitalists. I'm a capitalist. That's fine and dandy. But having said that, I just don't think that this request, the way it's currently structured, even with the impact fee that Mr. Hicken talked about, even with all those things, I just don't think that it's appropriate, and that's where I am. So, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, any other discussion? Yes, sir.
I'm gonna take the other side of the coin then. And I want to mention, I know we've had some comments from people that are concerned about this development. The gentleman mentioned about how they had a mistake made on their subdivision with the size of lots and having those be septic. I would mention that in the 1990s, the reason why the infrastructure was brought to save them wasn't because Southwest Licking Water and Sewer felt they needed to get some more customers. They had a development just beyond that brought the infrastructure to that site. So there's reasons why you do development. Some of them are direct, some of them are indirect. The next thing I would say is that you know, I drove through, there's several developments that are underway now in Pataskala, and I drove through them on Sunday. Looked through some of them, Homesteads at Border, Heron Manor, Heritage Town Center, those things. Those are all higher units per acre, and I will say that I'm not upset with any of those as being solid subdivisions in Pataskala. One of them is 2.47, the other one's 3.1. You know, there's other developments that have been approved that have been done right. There's also been some that have done wrong. There's no doubt about that. I will say that I appreciate the developer suggesting the impact fee. That was something they didn't have to do. I hope we do look into that for future developments, as the last guy in shouldn't have to pay the whole fee. And it shouldn't be the city paying for it because 2 or 3 before them have done their work, and their traffic study doesn't quite substantiate the improvements to the infrastructure. And lastly but not least, you know, and Scott, you can correct me if I'm wrong on this one, I think I heard during the comprehensive plan discussions that are going on, have been going on, 8,000 acres, is that about right, that we have to develop in Pataskala?
Yeah, approximately, yes.
So it would be extremely naive of any school district to think that it's not going to develop in some way. Hopefully, it's a mix of businesses and rooftops. But right now, we're not bringing in a lot of businesses, and we are getting our fair share of development requests. So with that amount of acreage being out there, to hear each time that the school is full shows to me that they need, I would suggest, the schools really need to look further and into the future because this is going to be a pressure that the city will continue to have in places that already have zoning and in places that want to do something a little different. And I do commend this development for proposing private streets and associations taking care of things and so forth. I think that was a unique idea for our area. So.
Any other discussion? Yes.
Yeah, I just want to say, I'll be brief. There's a lot of really good points made here, and so I'm not going to rehash them all, but I want to thank Mrs. Klima. We had some very good discussions, and we brought up some very valid points. To me, what it comes down to is several things: the schools, but being one, infrastructure being the other. But really, at the end of the day, I think the best way to describe it is just it's too dense. The lot sizes are too small for me to get comfortable with, and I know we can compare it to the neighborhood next to it that was built in the '60s, but you know, I've talked to a lot of those residents. We've spoke, and you know, that doesn't mean that was done right then. And you know, I don't know that the issues with the water and sewer correlate to today, but I'd really like to see the lot sizes increase, and I think it's fair for us to be asked, well, what would you approve? I'm not against development. I think we need development. I think, you know, for me, you know, we talked, I think 2 meetings ago, and Mr. Hicken brought up the question is, you know, what would be, what could we bump it down to? And you know, I'm not suggesting that it should be the way it's currently zoned, but I'm suggesting that something that I could personally get comfortable with would be something in between. I know we talked about that a little bit 2 meetings ago. So my biggest concern out of many is the lot sizes being the size that they're at.
Any other discussion? Yes, Mr. Powell?
Yeah, I appreciate the applicant's efforts to, over the course of this process, to reduce the number of houses, and that's pretty fair. I appreciate the fact that you guys want to build here, but but the concerns about the schools are valid, and while we obviously can't stop every single development that comes here, I think Licking Heights has actually been very accommodating and very willing to accommodate other developers. Broadmoor Commons, I was on planning and zoning when that first came through, and I remember I didn't see any comments from the school district. And so I think they've been willing to accept new developments, but you know, maybe it's just to the point now where they can't just sit back anymore. School districts, obviously, good school districts obviously make a good community. You're right on that, but I think but I think overwhelming the school districts doesn't necessarily brings to that goal. You know, if we have class sizes of 25, 30 students, that's a negative impact to the schools. That's not gonna bring people to Pataskala, that's not gonna bring developers to Pataskala, because you're gonna build houses and no one's gonna wanna move into them. So, and like Mr. Barstow said, I too have not heard anybody speak in favor of this development, and that's important to me as a representative of the residents. So, the lot size, again, I just hate seeing all the houses crammed into a small area. We have, with the new comprehensive plan, we've gotten a lot of feedback from the residents who say, you know, they want the larger lot sizes because they don't want the population to become so dense that we just can't handle it. So that's important to me in making my decision.
Councilwoman Carter.
I think there's a lot of, not only excellent points made, but we need to look back at the history of everything that's going on. And I remember 5 years ago when I came onto council and the discussion, specifically with Mr. King at the time, was the way we were starting to grow and kept talking about the avalanche coming. It was right on our doorstep that we needed to start relooking at how we accepted new development, both business and residential development, and how it impacts everyone. And when we say everyone, I'm not just obviously talking about the schools, who have, I think, made extraordinary efforts to accommodate the population of kids they have now, from, you know, repeatedly going to the ballot to get a new building built, to operation levies and the constant fight for that funding. But we also have to look at, with that, when they say they're the 4th fastest growing school district in Central Ohio, that makes us equally fast growing in population. What we're not as fast growing at is the amount of police officers we're able to put onto the street, or the amount of roads we're able to pave and repair, the amount of infrastructure we're able to keep up with. We are just now to the point where we're doing a study of our intersections to determine which one we should fix first, because there are so many that we can't say, well, we have these 3 that we really need to look at. We have a plethora of things. So while I am not anti-development in any sense of the word, I am about smart development, and I very much appreciate, Connie, the time you've taken to give all the information and the efforts that have been made to accommodate and the suggestions given. Unfortunately, the lot sizes are too small, and this just is not the time for us to start taking that stuff in. Yes, we're gonna grow, and the schools can expect to grow, but they can also expect to have a city that partners with them in all aspects, so we can do that in a smart way. So I want to just, we have fabulous city services, but we only have so much capacity to offer. So with that, you know, as much as I respect the applicant and their position, you know, once you build, you leave. And 10 years down the line, you'll be on to the next development, but we'll be here with the problems left over from the last development. And we've seen that with a number of the developments that we already have. So it's time for us as an elected body to start behaving. Sometimes you have to make the tough decisions, but being smarter about how we go about things. So that's all I got.
Any other discussion? Do I have a motion to adopt?
So moved.
I'm sorry? Moved by Mr. Hicken, seconded by?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Yes, ma'am.
May I speak?
Is it council's pleasure that Ms. Klima speak? Yes or no?
You know, Ms. Klima has come here and spoken 3 times. I'm not sure what else she's gonna say. We don't give other people this sort of unlimited opportunity. And I didn't appreciate the fact that Ms. Klima came here and complained about how we proceed. I didn't appreciate that at all. So I would say no. But I'm just one voice.
My belief is, I have no problem listening to what anybody is gonna say. I wouldn't want it to be belabored. You know,
Are you okay with her speaking?
I'm fine with it.
Okay, go ahead, Connie.
I'm okay.
Great, thank you very much. If it would so please you, I would ask that it be tabled. Thank you.
Okay. Back to, I still have a motion to adopt by Mr. Hicken, and was it a second by Mr. Powell? Any other discussion? Kathy, roll please.
Barstow,
No.
Hayes,
No.
Hicken,
No.
Lee,
No.
Carter,
No.
Walter,
Yes.
Howe,
No.
Ordinance fails. Ordinance 2019-4332 for a third reading.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Hicken, seconded by Mr. Powell. Kathy, when you're ready, third reading.
ordinance 2019-4332, this is the third reading, an ordinance to amend section 521.11 of the codified ordinances of the city of Pataskala, and repeal all their ordinances and parts of the ordinances in conflict therewith.
And it's already been amended, we don't have to go through that again, right?
Right.
Okay, so this is our weeds and grasses, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, any discussion on this? Okay, Kathy, when you're ready.
Mr. Mayor, point of order, we need a motion to adopt.
Okay, need a motion to adopt,
I
please.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we adopt ordinance 2019-43.
Motion to adopt by Mr. Barstow,
Second.
seconded by Mr. Powell. Discussion and roll.
Hicken,
Yes.
Lee,
Yes.
Carter,
Yes.
Walter,
Yes.
Howe,
Yes.
Barstow,
Yes.
Hayes,
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Powell, what do you got for me?
I'd like to make a motion to take, resolution 2019-015 off the table.
Got a motion to take the, 2019-015 off the table, seconded by Mr. Barstow. Discussion and roll, please.
Lee,
Yes.
Carter,
Yes.
Walter,
Yes.
Howe,
Yes.
Barstow,
Yes.
Hayes,
Yes.
Hicken,
Yes.
Okay, it's off the table. Resolution 2019-015, resolution authorizing and directing the city administrator to enter into and execute a renewal agreement on behalf of the city of Pataskala with Town and Country Technical Service, DBA Keytel, for the purpose of providing information technology, telecommunication, and desktop maintenance support.
Mr. Key, you've got this agreement in order?
Yeah, and the reason that I requested it be tabled before is there is a price increase over the last 3 or 4 years that we've had this. This is the renewal, and I wanted to get clarification what that price increase was for. It's because we have some additional servers now. This is also covering the telephones and also the laptops and computers that are outside of this building at our utility plants and street department.
Any other discussion? Yes, sir.
What's the duration for this contract?
This is a 3-year contract, I believe.
And this was not bid out, this was.
This was not bid out, and something like this, I don't think is smart to bid out, because when you have people ingrained in your IT system, I think it's good for continuity to,
So you would never bid this out?
I'm not saying I would never bid it out.
Okay.
I mean, that's,
Okay.
never's a long time, but
Yeah,
at the same time, the disruption that we would have with changing somebody over,
Sure.
I don't think is
Sure.
worth it.
What was the increase, do you know again?
It's about $16,000.
What's the percentage? Do you know the percentages there?
We were at, off the top of my head, I don't. We were at 20 or 21.
It's a $16,000 increase, and it was originally 21,000?
Right.
So you're better than 75%? Is that right? I'm just
Just
clarifying.
just a point of clarification as well. For the last 3 years, the last 2 years, 2.5 years, we've had additional servers that they hadn't picked up. They hadn't really gone through the contract. So we kind of, the last couple of years, we've had sort of a free ride with a number of our servers and the support. So this is a dramatic increase, but had we
Had we increased as each one of those
as each
came
server
online?
came online, these would be more incremental increases over the last 3 years.
So would this not be a good time to bid that out, seeing that there's a pretty good sized difference in scope? I guess what I'm getting at is.
I am
this is-
really hesitant to
The
bid out
issue
IT,
is, we've
but-
got 3 times now, we're talking tonight about not bidding out contracts. And one of them is for $129,000, and we're just deciding not, we may decide not to bid that out. Again, we're a 70% increase in the contract. We're not gonna bid that out. And again, and I'm not picking on Alan, we've talked about this over and over again, about engineering services not being bid out. I have a real problem with that.
I believe strongly in having continuity with IT systems just because of the nature of it and the disruption that it could have with changing, so I do recommend approval.
Any other discussion?
Yeah, no quick question.
Yes.
Have you had any problem with this provider?
We've been satisfied with them, and I know it's the same provider the fire district uses as well.
That's true.
Any other discussion?
We need a motion in a second.
No, okay. A motion to adopt a resolution, okay. It's a resolution?
Yes.
Okay. Need a motion to adopt, I'm
So
sorry.
moved.
Moved by Mr. Barstu,
Second.
seconded by Mr. Powell. Discussion?
Before he discussed it.
What's that? Yeah.
Before he had a discussion.
Roll? No, motion on the,
Carter,
Yes.
Walter,
No.
Powell,
Yes.
Barstow,
Yes.
Hayes,
Yes.
Hicken,
Yes.
Lee,
Yes.
resolution passes. Resolution 2019-023, resolution authorizing and directing the city administrator to execute a contract with Hall and Associates, Inc. for the design of the water reclamation facility upgrade project.
Moved.
Moved by Mr. Hicken,
Second.
seconded by Mr. Barstow. Discussion? And roll.
Walter,
No.
Powell,
Yes.
Barstow,
Yes.
Hayes,
Yes.
Hicken,
Yes.
Lee,
Yes.
Carter,
Yes.
Resolution passes. On to motions. Motion to approve applications for an agricultural district submitted by Dennis C. and Carol Sue McGowan, trustees. This is the one that was tabled, and,
Mr. Mayor?
yes.
I move we take, the McGowan, Ag District motion off the table.
Okay, got a motion to
Second.
take it off the table, seconded by Mr. Hicken. Discussion, and roll to take it off the table.
Powell,
Yes.
Barstow,
Yes.
Hayes,
Yes.
Hicken,
Yes.
Lee,
Yes.
Carter,
Yes.
Walter,
Yes.
Okay, off the table. Need a motion to approve.
So moved on the McGowan.
Moved by Mr. Barstow and seconded by Mrs. Hayes. Discussion and roll.
Barstow,
Yes.
Hayes,
Yes.
Hicken,
Yes.
Lee,
Yes.
Carter,
Yes.
Walter,
Yes.
Powell,
Yes.
Motion passes. Motion to approve applications for an agricultural district submitted by Timothy C. and Amanda N. Smith, SESI LLC, Melvin Height, Frank E. and Karen E. Brewing, and Mary L. Height.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Barstow, seconded by Mr. Walter. Discussion and roll.
Hayes,
Yes.
Hayes,
Yes.
Hicken,
Yes.
Lee,
Yes.
Carter,
Yes.
Walter,
Yes.
Powell,
Yes.
Barstow,
Yes.
Motion is approved. On to additional citizens' comments. Anybody wish to
Mr.
speak?
Mayor,
Yes.
got 2 motions. Just-
Oh, you have 2 motions. I'm sorry, sir. Go ahead.
I'd like to make, as discussed earlier, the buildings and grounds, I'd like to make a motion to implement a city gateway maintenance adoption program.
Second.
Got a motion by Mr. Lee, seconded by Mr. Barstow. Discussion and roll.
Hicken,
Yes.
Lee,
Yes.
Carter,
Yes.
Walter,
Yes.
Powell,
Yes.
Barstow,
Yes.
Hayes,
Yes.
Motion passes. Any other motions?
Yes, sir, please. I'd like to make a motion to authorize the city administrator to auction city-owned properties in the, only in the Blanche edition.
Second.
Got a motion, seconded by Mr. Hicken. Discussion and roll.
Carter,
Yes.
Walter,
Yes.
Powell,
Yes.
Barstow,
Yes.
Hayes,
Yes.
Hicken.
Yes.
Motion passes. Any other motions tonight? Yes, sir.
I do not, I'm done.
Okay.
You looked at me, I'm good.
Just wanna make sure. I jumped the gun there a little earlier. Anything, Mrs. Carter? No motion? Okay. On to additional citizens' comments. Anybody wish to speak about anything we've discussed tonight? You have 3 minutes.
Dan Bauer, 287 Summit Glen Road, southwest Pataskla, Ohio. First of all, I want to thank you for turning down that proposal for that development on Refugee Road. I think what you have done is definitely in the best interest of the citizens of this city. Secondly, I want to make you aware, and I'm sure you are aware of that, it's been many, many years since I've been to a council meeting. I attended many after the merger. And I'm here tonight to commend each and every one of you, our elected officials, on your professionalism and the way you handled this meeting. I have attended meetings here years ago that I said I would never go back, but never say never. I'm back. I do want Mr. Compton and all of the council members to know that I really appreciate how you conduct your meetings and how professional each and every one of you is. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Yeah, we're the hot ticket on Monday nights. Anybody else wish to speak? Yes, sir.
Good evening, Jonathan Bills, 3601 Rigby Road, Miamisburg, Ohio. Obviously, I'm the applicant. There's very little I can do at this point after the vote, but I just wanted to take an opportunity to share a couple thoughts as we go through it. I always recognize the need for a council to protect its community and what it thinks is in the best interest of that. I understand that. You know, we develop in many different cities and many states, and we recognize that. And we try to choose early on in projects, communities, and we look at their comprehensive plans. We look at what they're looking for. We try to partner with staff, and we try to go through that process and find a project that a community is going to support. In this case, you know, obviously that's disappointing. You know, we've been working on this project for a year and a half. I know the message was said that you don't want to send a message to developers not to come to Pataskala, but unfortunately, when you work for a year and a half, we've spent in the hundreds of thousands of dollars in different studies and engineering in doing this. We're friends with many developers, know all of them in this market as well as Cincinnati and Dayton. It's okay to say no, but it's much better if the council desires something, whether it's smaller lots, more density, less density, whatever it is, to make sure staff knows it, to make sure planning commission knows it, because you can save everybody a lot of headaches. You know, we've asked for advice, we've tried to meet those conditions, we've tried to do all those things for a year and a half, and we've wasted, I don't know how many tens of thousands of dollars of time and money from the city, from planning commission, and from yourselves for something that was apparent was never going to be able to get approved tonight. So all I ask is, because it does send messages, we talk, you know, should we go to this community, should we not, should we develop here or not, can you have a successful project here or not? And it's a small world, and it is talked about, and it's okay if a community doesn't want it. That's respectable. We wouldn't go there and try to propose something that the city's not going to want. So just take that under consideration is all I say. You know, the other piece is, like I said, you know, I believe we overall, we try to be a responsible developer. We try to compromise. We try to do different things. You could talk to Marysville here locally. You could talk to Springfield. You could talk to Huber Heights, Centerville, Springboro, out in the rural communities of Crosby Township, down in Cincinnati on the north side, in Liberty Township, and talk to all of them. And we formed a good partnership with them, and the ability to go back and forth in these meetings and make compromises, have discussions. If this doesn't work, tell us what does work. At least you're on record then letting other developers know, don't ever come and propose a 50-foot lot. We are never gonna approve that. We don't want anything less than 70 or something, or a compromise, propose a compromise during the part of the meeting when there can still be something done about it. Once it's at this stage, it was too late for anybody to do anything to help it at that point. So I respect the decision and what needed to be done. I ask maybe you think about how you can help the future so you don't have to make tough decisions here. They can be handled at staff level, planning commission level, and in other areas, and you can save people like myself from spending wasted money and from proposing things that you don't want to see. Thank you.
Anybody else wish to speak?
Mr. Mayor, can we respond to that? In my, okay.
I'd be glad to talk to you afterwards.
I'd like to talk in public about it, honestly.
During our comment
We can't do it
section.
right now. I'll wait till comment
Yeah, let's
section
hang
and
on.
I'll
Okay,
respond.
anybody else wish to speak?
Hello again, my name is Terry Martin, I'm at 210 Meadowway Southwest, Pataskala. I wanted to, as Mr. Bauer said, thank you all for your support this evening and you're listening to your constituents. I appreciate all of the messages that you sent. It seems as though one of the major messages is the lot size, and specifically, as Mr. Barstow had mentioned, not shoehorning in the number of lots within a particular development. And that is a big concern of mine as developments are put together and the plot maps are put together. There are X number of acres that are on these plots, and then there are X number of housetops or rooftops. And please be mindful of when they say houses are on so many houses are on an acre, they also take into consideration the green space, the roads, the driveways, everything else. All of that goes into that factor. So it shrinks down and shrinks down and shrinks down. You need to look at what the true number is. So that's something to keep in mind for the future. But again, I appreciate all of your hard work with this. I do not feel it was a waste of money. It may have been money that was spent, but it's money that is well spent and an education for all of us. Thank you.
Anybody else wish to speak? Yes, sir.
My name's Steve Hildebrand, 280 Blacks Road, Pataskala, Ohio. In regards to the development, I just recently had sold some property just north of here on Allward Road, which was 2.61 acres. And it took less than a week. I bought this last October and it was turned over pretty quickly. And the buyer's comment was they were tired of living in small subdivisions with these little lots where they've got 10 feet between houses. So I just thought I'd share that with you all, and that's why they're moving out into this area also, is to get a little bit more breathing space.
Anybody else? All right, we'll start with you, Mr. Lee.
Yeah, is this my time?
This is your time.
I'd just like to respond to that because I think he brings up a very good point, and I agree with him. While we didn't want this, and we made that perfectly clear, but I think we do need to set the tone, and we did send a message tonight. But I agree with the fact that maybe we should have sent it earlier, but from our perspective, I was kind of, as you were talking, I was thinking through the timeline in my head. When did council first see this? You've invested time and money, you said well over a year. So I was thinking, so when did we first see this? We saw this about, I don't know, 6-7 weeks ago for the first time. Does that sound about right? That's roughly what I can remember. So in our mind, we aren't dealing with that. So I guess I would maybe ask, because I think your point's valid, and we do need that, we do need to let developers know, because we aren't against development. Scott, I would ask you, what can we do to bridge that gap, that they're not coming in here wasting their time and resources and money, so that maybe council knows about it earlier, or they're told up front? I don't know, maybe it's just the fact that we have to have this vote, this first time when we say no. Maybe that's the message. And maybe it's just, unfortunately, it was you guys. I don't know the answer, but I think that we need to be responsible, and we need to let developers know where we stand up front instead of the last 7 weeks when they've already invested so much in it. I do sympathize with that, and I think we need to do a better job at that. I don't know what that looks like, But I think this is a good time right here, based off of his point, to start looking into how we do better at that on our end, so it doesn't happen again.
Mr. King, you have some
Yeah, I just wanted to, you know, as Tommy was talking here, I think one of those things is having a consistent vision for the city, whether it's at planning commission level, whether it's here. These are tough decisions to make, but I believe if there's that consistent vision, these things can start to be hashed out at the planning commission level. And I'm not pointing fingers anywhere, here, there, staff, whatever. I just think having that consistent vision, and I think tonight was the beginning of establishing that, what is wanted in the community, at least by council, what will pass. But I think it has to occur at all levels, understanding that and knowing what is the desire of the community.
Yeah, but what's that look like for them, the next developer that comes in? I mean, I can sit here and say what I think, I believe's right. There's something in the middle, I said tonight, a compromise somewhere between the way it's zoned and the way that it's proposed. It doesn't mean that everybody else sitting here would agree with the same thing I would. It doesn't mean that it's affordable for you guys. That might not make any sense from a dollars and cents. So, yeah, that sounds great in principle, but I think we need to, and I don't have the answer, that's why I'm bringing it up. But I think we need to work as a team and as a group so that they know, the next developer knows that where we stand. And I know it's not gonna happen overnight, but I think tonight's a good starting point. So.
Got anything else on your regular agenda?
No, I don't.
Suzanne?
Story Walk, May 15th, on the calendar, 6 p.m. Etna Elementary and Pataskala students are working together in a collaboration for a new story through Municipal Park. Rain date is the 16th, so we're working with Lanier. And Branham signs again in the Pataskala Library. That's all I have.
Mr. Walter?
Yeah, I would like to thank Mr. Hildebrand for bringing forward the requested improvement for the intersection at Blacks. And Alan, I don't know if that's something we can look into. I don't know if it's gonna take a traffic warrant, at least an analysis for a stop, for a three-way stop. But certainly sounds like a needed improvement on that roadway. So hopefully we can look into that.
Yeah, we'll certainly take a look at it,
Okay.
see what would be done.
And I appreciate Mr. Hildebrand bringing that to our attention.
And point taken by our chief of police also. Anything, Mr. Zets?
Nothing?
Mr. Barstow?
Well, again, I wanna thank Steve, for bringing that. He saw me, Stephen, just in full disclosure, Steve and I go to church, and he saw me on Sunday and said, hey, what can I do? And they bring it to city council. The chief will be there. He'll have a chance to listen. You can talk to him, as well as service department, the city, so you can get that out and talk to them afterwards if you want. And I really appreciate, Mrs. Hayes bringing up something nice happening here in the community. The story walk, that's always great. We had this very heavy discussion, and then she brings up this great event that we have. So thank you, Mrs. Hayes, for mentioning that. But to Mr. Bill's point, I mean, sometimes people sometimes there's compromises we offered to something in between, and you weren't able to do that, and I don't necessarily see that as a failure. You weren't able to do it. We understand that economically, it may not have been feasible. That's fine, as I said earlier. I don't see that necessarily as a failure. I would like, though, to Mr. Lee's point, to see maybe some more detail on, especially the larger developments that are proposed. And I'll direct that to Mr. Fulton and Mr. King. We see the report that has every, not to belittle anybody's application, we have every application. Somebody wants a variance to build a shed, and that's kind of lumped in with other sort of major issues. So maybe Scott and BJ, when those things come up, when those applications come in, if we could have a little bit more insight into exactly what's being proposed, because sometimes the description doesn't do it justice. And again, to Mr. Lee's point, the first time we really saw what this was about was 3 council meetings ago, or maybe a little bit before, when Ms. Klima provided us with the information about the development. Then there were some changes that were made from that point. So, on these larger ones that have impact,
maybe we should see that a little bit sooner. I don't think that every developer will provide the level of detail that Ms. Klima did for her client. But at least some more information about that. I don't know how if that's really feasible, or if that's stepping on P and Z's toes, and I don't know, so we don't have, Mr. Bills, I think, is it Bills, is that correct? Okay. Mr. Bills pointed out, we get up here and we're at the mountaintop, and here we are. There was not a whole lot of room to move, so I think that's the suggestion that I have. I think that the message, I just don't see it as a negative message. I think now that developers know, this is at least how this council views development within the city. And I agree with Mr. Lee on the lot size, and we had some other discussion about that. So I think that's the message. And I think there are developers who can develop and be successful financially and develop within those parameters. And I want to talk to Mr. Bauer's point about the council. When I first got on council in 2014, it was pretty contentious, and I thought for a while that maybe I wouldn't come back. So I appreciate you coming back, and that was to another meeting. So I appreciate you coming back. We do appreciate citizens coming out and speaking. We do appreciate people speaking up and participating in city affairs. So thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Powell?
Yeah, I want to say that to the applicant, I appreciate your graciousness and your feedback. You know, I guess I hadn't thought about our vote as sending a message, but I think it really is about, you know, our taste and our desire for the kind of developments we want to see. And to agree with Mr. Lee, I think we need to, that needs to go down to every level and every department that works with developers, so that you don't go through the whole process and spend all this money and only to find out that there was never a desire for it in the first place. So I think that's something that we can, that's an area of opportunity for us where we can improve. And because I certainly don't want to, you know, the message of the kind of the kind of developments we want is the message I want to send, but not the message that we don't want developments at all, because we do. I'm open to development. I think everyone on here is open to development. We just want to, you know, make sure it's done in a responsible way. So, thank you.
Mrs. Carter?
Yeah, I'm gonna say, first off, to the point of us getting information, you know, sooner, if you will. Mr. Fulton, in the time I was on development committee, started putting a chart in every packet that's given to council every week that has a timeline of everything that's going on. And it kind of gives like a color chart. And that is something that you get with your report each time, or is that only?
Every council report, it's provided.
Okay, so that's in Mr. Fulton's report, because that was something way back when we first got here in 2014. We didn't know if there was a vision. There has been some turnover in council since that time, and there's a couple of us that have, you know, come on and are still here. And I think that I might be wrong. I thought that was our discussion, that, you know, we were against smaller lot sizes, and this has been a discussion. So it's been a process of us getting a comprehensive plan together. I mean, we were unearthing paperwork that showed developments that we didn't know existed, that popped up, you know, out of files and such, and we were concerned that we didn't have any recourse because we didn't know they existed and hadn't done our due diligence. So, I don't know, I feel like we have, not that we can't improve, but we have steadily come along and we're on the right track. So I will say, I appreciate the citizens that came out and spoke. Occasionally there will be a topic that comes up that, you know, we'll get a lot of feedback, but it always helps us because we sit up here, you know, in our own world, often alone here on a Monday night, thinking that we're doing the will of the citizens, but having that feedback is very helpful and seeing where people's thoughts are at and their opinions. But I appreciate Mr. Fulton's information that we get each time, and I think that we've steadily moved towards that that way. So, I only have one other thing to add, that has nothing to do with that, and I just wanna thank Linear, for the work. I have not seen as much advertisement about our parks in every time I turn around, whether it's on Facebook, or if the school, or somebody's talking to me about it. It's very impressive. So, and that's not just me sucking up because you took my kid at the last second, because his registration was still on. So, that's appreciated as well. So, that's all I have.
I really appreciate Mrs. Carter's comments, because that what she said is absolutely correct. We have slowly been kind of trying to move that way, and I do appreciate the planning director's reports. It's not as cut and dry as council might think. It's not, you almost have to kind of somewhat read between the lines and go ask the questions. And it's a difficult process for people that aren't used to doing it. And frankly, as elected officials, lots of times we're not. I do appreciate the input from the applicant, that we could do a better job of that. We can do a better job of perhaps sending information down the line. I tend not to think that my job is to, and maybe I'm wrong in this respect, tell the planning commission exactly what to do, although they should have a pretty good concept of how council feels about that stuff. So I think that indeed that is important. And I at least knew about this. I knew about the development and the number of houses. I didn't know what it looked like, and I think I had some discussions where I said, that looks like an awful large number of homes, and to be frank, I thought perhaps that might have been why the number came down. That may not be the case. In the end, it wasn't, all these decisions are tough. And this was one. It was not a slam dunk decision for me. So, with that, I would move to adjourn.
Second.
Motion and seconded, discussion, roll.
Turner,
Yes.
Walter,
Yes.
Powell,
Yes.
Barstow,
Yes.
Hayes,
Yes.
Higgins,
Yes.
Adjourn, you may now move about the cabin.
And I appreciate Mr. Barstow taking care of my seats while I was out.
Yes, I remind everybody